So for my comparative study, I chose to do the truth behind true crime movies. So the first movie that I chose was Zodiac, which is basically just a story of Zodiac and everything that happened behind the scenes. So it stars Jake Gyllenhaal as Robert Graysmith, who is the writer of the book that this movie is based off of. Um, Robert Downey Jr. as Paul Avery, who was the author. He was an American author for the San Francisco Chronicle, which is a very big part of the Zodiac. And Dave Toschi, who is played by Mark Ruffalo, who is a detective on the case of the Zodiac. And the second movie that I chose is Mazarin Killer Instinct, which is a French film based on Jacques Mazarin, a French criminal responsible for various different criminal acts, who's played by Vincent Cassel, which this movie is based off of the book that Jacques Mazarin wrote about himself while he was in jail. So basically, the Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who killed people mostly in Northern California during the 60s and 70s. He's known for killing 4 men and 3 women and writing letters to the San Francisco Chronicle that included ciphers. Many people were accused of being the Zodiac Killer, but the main 3 are Richard Marshall, Lawrence Kane, and Arthur Lee Allen. And in the movie The Zodiac, they really point out that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac Killer. However, before they were actually able to investigate him in real life, he had a heart attack and died. So the case still remains open today. And Jacques Mazarin was public enemy number 1 in the 1970s. He's known for being a murderer, a robber, a kidnapper, and for escaping prison several times and helping other people escape as well. He is known for criminal acts across the US, Canada, and France. And he is known as the man of 1,000 faces. In that picture in the bottom right corner, those are actually all him, just in different disguises. He was a very public person. He liked to have attention, and he liked to have the support of the public, even if he was doing bad things. The ladies loved him, and he died in 1979. So what I really want to focus on for this movie, although both of these movies all have the same genres of thriller, action, mystery, and drama, I want to focus on the true crime aspect of the movie, to show how like both of these movies are like real, and they showed how real people killed other people, but they both portray the killer in the light, as in like they are seen as good. So first off, I want to talk about the lighting in the Zodiac, which is very unique to me, how I think the director portrayed the killer in the brighter light, creating it for like the audience to seem like calmer so they wouldn't suspect the person. So in the bottom picture, that is a picture of Arthur Lee Allen talking to the 3 different detectives. And as you can see, the light is like obviously brighter, and the colors that are in the scene, yellow and like a light green, are used to show the audience that it's a much calmer scene and that like they shouldn't feel worried, when they actually should. But then they show people who shouldn't be seen as suspects, as like they make you feel like those are the suspects. Whereas you can see in the top picture, that's a picture of Robert Graysmith, or Jake Gyllenhaal, talking to one of his colleagues, who he had never met before, and they make you think that he could be the Zodiac Killer, when in reality, like, he had no association. But because of that dark light and the like surroundings of rain and nighttime, it made the audience feel uneasy watching the scene, and making them think that he was the Zodiac Killer instead of the man that was portrayed in the bright lighting as Zodiac Killer when he actually was. Where in Mazarin Killer Instinct, you know who the killer is the whole time. So they use the lighting a bit different. They use it to help the audience distinguish the difference between the characters' moods. So in the top picture, it's very low lighting with shadows and red and blue tones, meant to show the scene is very intense and like show that the character is in a serious mood. Like obviously he is killing people, so he's in a much more serious mood. Whereas in the bottom picture, the light is bright and the shots are really clear, giving the audience the ability to see the emotions of the character, and to show these killers in a much brighter light, even though they had done these terrible things. The next thing I'm going to focus on is the angles. So in these two movies, Mesrin on the top, Zodiac on the bottom, two pictures, the killers are never shot in the inferior position. They are always shot either in the dominant position or straight on, which I think is very weird, considering in that top right picture, Mesrin is obviously at one of his lowest points, and he is still not shot in the inferior position, which really goes to show that they were not trying to show these people in a low point at all. They wanted them to be seen how everybody else was seeing them. The next thing I want to talk about is the openings of both the movies. So both movies begin with people dying. However, it's two different kinds of death. So in the Zodiac, the opening scene is of the Zodiac killer killing two teenagers in a car, which happened in real life, then calling the police to tell them where he had shot them, what he had shot them with, and that he was also the one who had killed two teenagers in the year prior. So this really gives the audience the opportunity to make their own opinion about the character before knowing any background information about them, giving them their own kind of ability. And then in Mesrin Killer Instinct, a much similar but also different thing is that it started at the end. So it started with these two split screens with different angles of the actions that were being made by the characters, and then building to the suspense for what was inevitably Mesrin's death. So by showing his death at the beginning, it allows the audience to make their own assumption about why the character was shot. Like, what did he do something, or was he innocent? And it, in a way, makes them feel bad for the character before even knowing his background. So it really like grabs their attention and makes them feel a connection with this character that they know nothing about. The next thing I want to focus on is war. So in both of the movies, Arthur Lee Allen and Jackie Mesrin had passed with military experience. And the characters in the movies, such as like Robert Tausche, like the detective, and like other detectives, use the past of their military as reasoning for why they were doing these terrible things, like why they were killing people and stuff like that, when in reality they were just like mentally ill, but they were using this thing of war as an excuse for that, which was not the actual case. And lastly, I want to talk about the publicity. So, as I was mentioning before, publicity was a large part of both of them. So, for the Zodiac Killer, he always requested that his ciphers be like published into newspapers, and if they weren't, he was going to kill more people because he wanted people to be involved and interested in like what he was doing. But the director in the Zodiac decided to, instead of having a lot of people be interested in this, he decided to portray it through the one person, Robert Graysmith, who his life eventually was taken over by this determination to find the Zodiac, when in reality there were so many people whose lives were taken over by this fascination with the Zodiac. And then for Mesrin, it was a bit different. He gained his publicity from the people. Like, the people loved him as like a person, which is weird to me. But he was portrayed as okay in the movie, but he was also seen as that in like real life. So like many people wrote books about him, like not just himself. Women loved him. He was seen with many women throughout the movie. For some people, he was a hero. For, I think it said, teens. And then he was seen as a Robin Hood, which basically means he was a good guy who fights for like the justice of the youth, when in reality he was this killer who like was not good to women and all these things, but he was not portrayed like that. So in conclusion, both of these characters are portrayed as public figures in real life and in the movie. So what I wanted to say was, because of the world's fascination with these types of sociopaths, they're given a lot of attention for the wrong reasons, because they kill and because they do it in these weird ways using ciphers